So, when I was 14 years old, I got my first laptop. Pretty exciting stuff. My mom also got me a game to go with it. For some reason, I saw the Sims Free commercial with all the Sims wandering around in a field and was like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And so it was done. It was 2010. The Sims had been out for about a year, and there were only 3 expansions: World Adventure, Late Night, and Ambitions. I got Ambitions, and this hairstyle that came with it if you registered the game. I ended up spending a lot of time in the community and came across what is known as the 100 Baby Challenge, which is essentially one Sim has 100 babies with all different fathers. For some reason, I really wanted to do this. I took a Sim I had created for a previous project, known as Cheaterville, don't look it up, and moved her into the starring role of her own story, Alessi's 100 Baby Challenge, known on the forums as the voices in my head. Look, I apologize. This whole thing is embarrassing, but I kept up with it all through high school. The first post was made the summer before my sophomore year, and the last post right before finishing my senior year. It was pretty off and on, and was plagued with a lot of technical problems. And I only got to 34 kids before giving up on it. I still continued to play The Sims Free though, even after The Sims 4 was released. I refused to play The Sims 4 until they added toddlers, but after they did, I was like, maybe I should try that challenge again? So I did. I ended up recreating Alessi and spent roughly about 2.5 years having her sleep with the whole town, watching all her kids die off, being married 3 times, and of course, giving birth over and over again until I finally put myself into the game and impregnated Alessi with her 100th child. No, I'm not kidding. I fathered the 100th baby. It was supposed to be symbolic, I don't know. The 100th baby, named Patience, was born on my 24th birthday. She also had a twin sister, but she's not important. So why am I telling you all this? Well, the vast majority of Alessi's kids were pale redheads. Like, just an absolutely absurd amount. This isn't even all of them. This is just all the screenshots I still have. Out of 101 kids, there were 3 brunettes in total. Seriously. And I had a lot of variety in the fathers. I know I can't really prove it because the family tree is struggling, but in most cases, I just got desperate and had her bang whoever happened to be walking by. And it got me thinking, you know, that the Sims Free genetics were pretty wonky, but that was because there were so many sliders, tones, and shades. Of course, there would occasionally be a weird mix-up here or there. For example, in the Sims Free, Alessi had a very light skin tone that was on the brown spectrum, and this father had a darker skin tone that was on the blue spectrum. So when they had a child together, he inherited his father's darker tone and his mother's brown shade. Special thanks to Lollipop867 for explaining this to 15-year-old me. It's obviously a mistake, but it's understandable because of how vast The Sims Free's genetics were. The Sims 4 genetics, however, not so vast. They give you pre-assigned colors, and that's it. And I was curious how exactly the genetics worked given these limitations. So I decided to run a series of genetic experiments. And by a series, I mean 2 entire months of my life. So here's how I did the experiments. I made 2 Sims under very specific conditions, and then in the game had them have 50 babies. Since the max amount of Sims you could have at a household at one time is 8, I had the parent Sims have 6 babies and then age them up to toddlers. Though in later runs, I realized it was faster to age them up right after birth. And from there, I took them into Create a Sim, aged them up into young adults, documented them, and then sent them off to live with another hapless family to make room for the next 6 kids. I also used the genetic tool in Create a Sim to create 50 kids for them as well, and categorized them separately in case there were any differences. These kids got deleted as soon as I documented them. Rest in peace, friends. For transparency's sake, I barely have any custom content, and the only mod I have in the game is the master controller. And it was crucial to this mission because it allowed me to speed up the pregnancies. It's entirely possible that this mod might have messed with something, because I noticed in my 100 baby challenge that boy-girl twins were extremely rare for my sim until I installed this mod, and then it happened all the time. But the pregnancies all happened organically. I did not use the mod to make anyone pregnant, and I did not use it to increase the number of babies that they had at once. And even with the mod, multiples were still extremely rare. I gave both Sims the fertile trait in the hope that they'd be spitting out twins and triplets, which didn't work. This was unfortunate because they were having 50 babies at a time. This was so tedious. Never do this. A few more quirks I noticed. The red shirt, green jean combo is extremely popular for little boys. A lot of the toddlers aged up into this exact outfit. I also noticed when I aged up twins in Create a Sim, a lot of times they ended up with the same hairstyle. Like, enough times that I don't think that was a coincidence, so I guess that's kind of cool. Freckles and moles are definitely not genetic. I gave a lot of parents freckles and not a single child inherited them. Also, the genetics tool in Create a Sim gets slower and slower the more you use it, which, again, unfortunate. But alright, let's get into the magic here. Taking a look at what the game offers for skin tones, we have 26 brown-based skin tones, 4 more colorful skin tones, and 5 that are much more gray-based. Let's start off with the brown-based skin tones, in particular with how the game picks them out. I gave each tone a number in order from 1 to 26, 1 being the lightest, 26 being the darkest, and I made 2 Sims, one with skin tone 1 and the other with skin tone 26. Then I had them have 50 babies in-game and 50 babies using the genetics tool, and documented which numbers their children ended up with, and then averaged the results. In theory, if the game chose a skin tone that was exactly in the middle, it would be averaging either 13 or 14. And if not, I wanted to see how much higher or lower it went. I ended up repeating this test 3 more times, 4 times in total, so there were 200 babies born in-game and 200 Sims created with the genetics tool, with a total of 400 subjects in all. For the in-game portion, the averages were 11.22, 10.68, 12.08, and 11.78. For the Create a Sim portion, the averages were 10.68, 11.03, 11.8, and 11.46. The total average for the in-game portion was 11.44, and the average for Create a Sim was 11.24. So both skewed a bit lower. What's interesting is that the 2 most common skin tones by far were 12 and 13, which is pretty close to the center. However, 6 and 4 were also pretty common, and they seemed to drag the average down. 19 popped up quite a bit too, but not as much as the lower numbers. What really caught my attention though was that these 5 numbers were the only 5 numbers for nearly all of the 400 Sims tested. There were 2 20s and a 3, but every single other Sim had either 12, 13, 4, 6, or 19. I thought for sure, considering the huge scale between the 2 parents, there would be a huge variety, but nope. 12, 13, 4, 6, and 19. That's it. So I got back to testing. I started heading towards the middle, moving the lowest one up and the highest one down. So one test had 2 and 25, and then 3 and 24, and then 4 and 23, all the way down to 10 and 17. So the 2 and the 25 immediately showed some difference, with 16, 17, and 11 being extremely common numbers in this run. However, when I got to 3 and 24, things went abruptly back to normal, with every single one of their offspring having 12, 13, 4, 6, or 19. Same thing with 4 and 23. 5 and 22 had some 11s, 16s, 17s, and 18s. However, 6 and 21 only had the original 5 numbers. After that, though, it went completely off the rails until we got to 9 and 18, which was almost completely 16 and 11, and then 10 and 17, which was completely 16 and 11. Yeah, I don't really see a pattern here personally. Like, I have no explanation for any of this. Let me know if I'm missing something obvious here. What's also worth mentioning though is that the smaller the distance between the parent skin tones, the higher the average got. The highest average by far was 14.36, which belonged to the 7 and the 20. I think to me that shows that the 4s and the 6 were dragging down the average. Next up is the more gray-based skin tones. This one was only one test, and it was very much the same idea. One Sim with the darkest, one Sim with the lightest. Let's see what happens. And what happened was that the offspring either inherited one or the other. There was no in between. So unlike the more brown-based skin tones, which are typically able to choose a new tone in between the 2 parents, the grayish ones seem to do their own thing. They function much like the colorful skin tones. The reds, the blues, the green, you either get one or the other, and it's pretty close to a 50-50 split which one. While I was messing around with the colorful skin skin tones though, I did notice that some of the hair colors actually seem to function in some weird ways. So let's pivot over to hair. Now, my old college roommate who was right beside me throughout most of the 100 Baby Challenge and actually watched baby number 100 be born on Discord.
Ah, it's a girl. We did it!
Suggested to me that I should figure out exactly which hair colors are the most dominant. And I 100% think that's a good idea. After all, the sheer amount of redheads Alessi birthed is just bizarre. But I thought about it, and I think if I were to do that, I would have to put every single hair color against every single other hair color. And I am only one person with a limited amount of patience and storage on my computer.
Ooh, boring!
So instead of that, I'm going to be focusing on the odd hair colors and how they function in contrast to the more traditional hair colors. Now, I remember back in The Sims 3, there wasn't really any difference between brown hair and pink hair. Your sim was just as likely to inherit both if it was in their genes, and it showed as early as when they aged up into a toddler. So I was expecting the same from this game and was extremely disappointed when I realized that neither toddlers nor children could have the weird colorful hair colors. It just isn't an option. This led me to believe that it was completely impossible for Sims to inherit the odd hair colors from their parents, but my old college roommate insisted that they could get their parents' hair color when they aged up into teens. I didn't actually believe her at first because I've bred Alessi with a lot of people with blue, purple, and pink hair, and none of her kids got it. However, she was absolutely correct. Toddlers and children will get a random hair color until they age up into teens, at which point they will get their parents' colorful hair. I can't say I'm a fan of this personally, like why can't you just recolor the toddler and children hairs? Actually, there does seem to be some trouble when it comes to the more colorful skin tones too. With the silverest colored one, the babies are white, and for the red one, the babies have a brown skin tone and they all have the green onesie regardless of gender. In case you don't know, in The Sims 4, girl babies have yellow onesies and boy babies have green onesies. I don't need a gender binary in my game, but this looks like a mistake. Also, clearly they just kind of lay the red over the baby icon because the onesie is red too. Fortunately, this is all fixed when they become toddlers, and as far as I've seen, two Sims that have the same colorful skin tone will always have a child with that same skin tone. I've never seen a Sim be born with a skin tone outside the range between their parents. The same cannot be said of hair, however. When I had two Sims with lavender hair have 50 babies together, 18% of those babies did not get their parents' hair color when they aged up, and instead kept the random hair color the game assigned them. That's a nearly 1 in 5 chance. This is the highest instance I've seen of this though, with the pink hair having only a 2% chance and the green not getting it at all. It also doesn't seem to happen in Create a Sim either. I knew this happened on occasion because Alessi had a child with a woman with blue hair, and that child grew up to have black hair. I suspect it's a glitch that comes from the fact that toddlers and children can't have colorful hair, because by and large this doesn't happen with the more traditional hair colors. With the exception of brown, weirdly enough, I ran a test where both parents had the slightly lighter brown hair color, and they ended up having kids that got the darker brown hair color. It's also extremely prevalent with the hair colors meant for older Sims. Not just the gray and silver, but also the brown and black with the gray streaks. These actually function exactly like the colorful hairs, with toddlers and children unable to get them until they age up. Some of the eye colors are janky too, and yep, once again, it's the more colorful ones. There's really only two odd eye colors, red and pink. And from what I've seen, using one of these colors gives you a 40 to 50% chance of getting the other, both in-game and in Create a Sim. There's also these two colors here. One of them looks black and the other looks white, but in reality, the black one is hazel and the white one is a silvery blue. I tested these to see if they did anything odd, and yep. The silvery blue one sometimes gets inherited as a darker, much more duller blue, and the hazel as a light brown. And yep, just like the red and pink, it's a nearly 50-50 chance of it happening. And if you make Sims with a darker blue or light brown eyes, their offspring have a 50-50 chance of inheriting the silvery blue or the hazel, which screams to me that these eye colors are completely interchangeable. Now, unlike the hair colors where I did at least one test on each, there are unfortunately way too many eye colors, and many of them look near identical to each other. But I did keep a close eye while I tested other things, except sometimes I forgot to take sunglasses off, whoops, and I didn't notice anything weird from the blues, the browns, or the greens. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, it just means that if it did, it was just a shade or two different and I didn't notice. The last thing I was interested in testing was the generational genetics. This one I was excited for because I came across this all the time in The Sims 3. Sims who have kids who have different hair and eye colors from their parents because they inherited them from their grandparents. I always thought that was cool. I wasn't sure if The Sims 4 would have anything like that, but surely I thought it would happen at least a couple of times. Well, I did this experiment 3 times, mostly in-game, but I did do create a sim once. Made a couple families, had them have kids, made sure the kids had roughly the same hair and eye color so differences would stand out, then sent them out to have kids of their own. I ended up doing black hair each time, and I made sure that they had parents who were blonde and redheaded. With a sample size of 150 Sims in-game and 50 Sims in Create a Sim, not a single Sim had a different hair, skin, or eye color than their parents. Not a single one. I asked some friends about this. Both have played with multiple generations in The Sims 4, and neither had seen any of their Sims inherit eye or hair color from any of their grandparents. I went onto the forums and asked there too. A couple of people maintained that it just wasn't a thing in The Sims 4. One person even highlighting a part of the wiki that says just that. But there were a lot of people saying it happened to them, with one person even including pictures. But nearly every single person who said it happened said it only happened once. So if it is possible, it's extremely rare. Now, granted, these are just my results, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the game reacted differently based on different factors. Like, I have pretty much no expansions and very little custom content. One of the friends who I asked about the generational genetics told me about how sometimes she'll hook a sim up with an alien, and the resulting child will be a human, but it'll be a human with blue skin. And I was like, well, I don't have aliens in my game, but that's interesting. Yeah, obviously I can't cover everything, but if anyone wants to repeat this experiment, you're more than welcome. I mean, don't, because it's absolutely the most tedious thing I've ever done in my life. But yeah, no, if you're crazy enough to do it, I'd love to see the results. Thank you so much for watching. Quarantine has been cruel. I am currently working on a huge video that's 15 years in the making. It's not Sims related, not sure if that's a deal breaker there. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.